Hi there.
Awesome. Hello. All right, everyone. So I have Peter Bruun here. I know that I've told many of you that I'm interviewing him today. So I'm just going to start out by reading a short bio. So Baltimore artist Peter Bruun is the founder of the New Day campaign. He is an artist, educator, curator, and community activist in the arts. Peter received a BA in art history from Williams College in 1985 and went on to retrieve an MFA in 1989 from the Maryland Institute College of Arts, and for those of you in Baltimore, is known as MICA. Throughout his adult life, he's been committed to his ever-evolving practices as an artist. Peter founded the New Day campaign in early 2014 following the death of his daughter Elisif from heroin addiction. So Peter, welcome and thank you so much for being here. And so that's your bio on paper. What can you share about yourself more so than that?
Yeah, I think the important aspect here is the work I was doing for 15 or 20 years before Elisif died, which was really using art as a way to bring people together around issues and ideas. As an artist, where I would make paintings and combine them with works, words, participation of others to illuminate other people's voices or various issues, to a curator where I would organize exhibitions and projects where, without my own art, but around themes that were of communal or social justice interest, and using those sorts of exhibitions or projects as a community organizing tool to have events around those topics, to have various outcomes such as people-to-people connecting, public education, illuminating resources, empowering voices that ordinarily are disenfranchised, those sorts of things. So I've been doing that kind of work for many, many, many years. So when my daughter died, I was well armed to deploy those tools for some purpose relevant to her passing.
Cool. Awesome. And so the reason that I wanted to interview you and have you here today is because, we've been working with the New Day campaign, moving into this new year, and I've partnered with the campaign to help with the fundraising, kind of area that we're in. So tell us about the New Day campaign. Sure. And how it got started.
Sure. So when my daughter died, we'd been living with her with addiction for 5 years. So the substance use had been going on long before that, but that's how long my wife and I lived with her. And as with so many families, it's a lonely, scary, and confusing ride. So when she died, we actually, and this is not atypical, it was a time when we thought she was doing well. And she relapsed, she died. And the two things happened very quickly, which directly led to the New Day campaign. One thing is the day she died, I had drawings in my head that I wanted to make, that they just filled me and I needed to make them, and they were about her and her spirit. They were abstract, but they were about her. And it took me 2 months to get going on them, but that was a creative direction I started going in to process my grief and the loss. And there was no choice involved. It just needed to happen. And the second thing that happened was, as the kind of artist, social engagement artist that I'd been, I had a newsletter, I had an email list, 3,000 people on the list, and I would send a newsletter out each month. And the first newsletter I sent out, I wrote about my daughter, with my wife's and 2 surviving daughters' blessing, and came right out with the story of her passing. And I wrote a blog called A New Day. And in that, I spoke of the hope of a new day when those with addiction and mental illness are not seen as weak and immoral, but is seen as bravely fighting diseases. And when I pushed send, I felt very vulnerable and exposed. And the response was extraordinary. And it wasn't just, "We are so sorry about the loss of your daughter." It was also, "I've never shared this with anyone, but I used to use heroin. I know parents who have grieved in silence because they've been ashamed of why their child died. My sister died of an overdose, and I want to do something. What are you doing? Can I do something? Thousands of people read that blog, and it filled me with a sense of purpose. And I knew why I was on this earth with those skill sets that I developed as a social engagement artist. So that set me off on the path. And deploying those organization skills and knowing how to connect with people, knowing how to reach out to stakeholders, and touching people's heart with my own story, we ended up building in 2015 what was intended to be a one-time project called the New Day Campaign. It was a passion project of mine, and it became a passion project of a movement of people who shared in different ways my kind of story. So from October 1st to December 31st of 2015, in the Baltimore area, we held 16 art exhibitions. Art with stories behind it to humanize, to build compassion, to generate understanding. And we had 63 events. 3,000 people came to the events. More than 3,000 people came to the events. Thousands more saw the exhibitions. We partnered with 91 organizations to make this happen. And we started this. I mean, you know, my daughter died in early 2014, but it took a while for this notion of a campaign to germinate in my head. And we did not have the first organizing meeting until January 2015. That was the very first organizing meeting. 80 people were in the room. And people jumped on board, and I organized the folks and how to make this happen. And 9 months later, we had a full program of 92 days of 16 exhibitions and 63 events, of which thousands of people came. And the impact was extraordinary. It was, each event offered people-to-people connecting. It offered public education. It offered healing experiences. And most specifically, because we led with art, which is an upbeat thing and a positive thing, and because we led with our own vulnerabilities, we basically created an unbelievably safe space for people to come with their pain, with vulnerability, with their sense of isolation, and find fellowship. I cannot tell you how many times at these public, positive-spirited gatherings, somebody would raise their hand and say something like, I have never said this in public before, but. And that person was met with warmth, support, time and time again. So it could not be a one-time thing. And in 2016, we began organizing to make the New Day campaign an ongoing organization. One other quick comment on this before you go to your next question.
Yeah.
For me, 2015 was an extraordinary healing ride. I needed the New Day campaign for my own grief. And it didn't exist. So in many ways, I created it for me. And I found healing in 2015. And the New Day campaign had given me, at that personal level, everything I needed in 2015. 2016 has been community service for me. I entirely see the value and importance and necessity of the New Day campaign continuing. And that's why I've given this year to be part of a team to launch it as an organization. And I want to emphasize that word team, because the New Day campaign has far and away transcended me. And you're a part of that, Claire. Your peer-to-peer fundraising campaign. You are a member of this team. And without dozens of people like you helping out, we wouldn't be where we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, thank you for sharing so much about that. And one thing you mentioned a couple of times was about stigma and healing. And there's so many issues when we talk about mental illness and substance abuse. It's so many different topics that, that kind of transcend those things. Why do you think eliminating the stigma, why is that the main focus for the way you've moved forward?
Well, I'll tell you the personal reason. I'm convinced that if stigma didn't exist, my daughter would still be alive. And I'm not talking about the brutal, ugly stigma of stupid addicts, get out of the street, go away. I'm talking about internalized stigma.
Mm.
Internalized stigma. The fear, when Elisabeth was alive, I lived with fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I stigmatized the disease she had because I was so afraid of it. And I recognized that only once she died. I realized that because of that fear I had, because of that stigmatization, I frankly left her far more alone than she really needed to be. And I will say that we as loving parents did things by the book. We said the right words, we did the right things, but there was a meta message. And that meta message was one of fear and stigmatization, an emotional message. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to be comfortable with addiction, substance use, mental illness. We need to recognize that it's as acceptable as real as a broken arm or breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And what stigma does is it keeps people who care from being as caring as they want to be and need to be. It keeps those who are hurting closeted with their pain because they feel shame and blame, and they will not seek help because of stigma. My daughter did not seek help because of stigma. And until those with mental illness and addiction are met with compassion and understanding rather than fear or judgment, people are dying. And that is why stigma is so important. And there are an increasing number of studies to prove out that stigma is a tremendous barrier to people receiving treatment, and it's certainly a barrier to investment in sound policy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So as the campaign moves forward into 2017, as more of an organization, as a team, what does that look like? What
Sure.
What's it look like?
So for the past year, I've been part of what you might call a consulting team. I've been a kind of co-project leader with my colleague Nancy Lewin, and there have been several others who have been underpaid consultants because it's a passion project to build the infrastructure of an organization, fundraising strategy, operations protocols, database system, communications platforms, branding, all of those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been raising money to hire an ongoing staff. I am the founder of the New Day campaign. I am not the founding director.
Mm-hmm.
And supporting us throughout, really leading us throughout, is an advisory board. We have a 17-member advisory board, not a board of directors. We are not yet a 501c3. That's a question to be answered in the future. But NAMI Metro Baltimore, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, the Baltimore chapter, is our fiscal agent. Okay. What that means is that folks who want to support us write checks to NAMI Metro Baltimore. When you make a donation to Network for Good, it goes to NAMI Metro Baltimore, and they are our fiscal agent, which means they handle the money and pass it on to the New Day campaign for us to do what we please with it. Gotcha. They've elected to have us be under them as a fiscal agent because of mission alignment. We really are aligned in our mission. So we are probably about 2 weeks away from announcing the hiring of an executive director, which is a really exciting moment for us. And we are all tremendously excited about the person we seem to have. I can't say any names yet. It's a 98% chance. There's a 2% of finalizing contract negotiations. And we have a plan for staff to support her. And in January, the new executive director and the advisory board, and I will be a part of that, will huddle for a strategic planning session. And so there's short-term and long-term. Long-term plans will come out of that strategic planning session. And I am guessing something major will come along in 2018. But in the meantime, we're not idle. So in Baltimore right now, we're doing a coffee house series. And these are informal gatherings with art, performance, sharing, information, and conversation around any one of our 4 program strands. We have 4 program themes or topics that we're focusing on for the next foreseeable future. Turbulent Waters looks at the perilous passage from basically high school age through college age. And our premise there is, just as young people developmentally are appropriately getting more autonomy,
Mm-hmm.
that is exactly when mental illness and substance use is at highest risk of entering the room. So what are we doing? What aren't we doing? What can we do to help young people through those years? And of course, it spills into the years before and the years after, but that's sort of the hook. Addiction Now, the fast changing world of addiction treatment policy, protocols, and cultural attitudes. Where are we today in the 21st century, as opposed to the 20th century, which so much thinking is still stuck in? So we do programming around that. Just Breathe looks at trauma, its causes, its consequences, its relationship to mental illness and addiction, and its healing paths. And the fourth one is a kind of all-comers platform and kind of captures the entire spirit of the New Day campaign. It's called Candlelight. Mm-hmm. And that is a kind of all-comers story sharing platform. Bring your story of isolation, pain, and darkness and light up the room by lighting the candle of your story. So we're doing a bunch of small gathering programs on that. Mm-hmm. I'm also happy to say that our work has been caught the attention of the state Behavioral Health Administration. So there are a couple of things we're doing with state contracts. One of them is an exhibition that's going to be chaired or hosted by the First Lady of Maryland, Yumi Hogan. This will be in spring in 2017. It's going to be an exhibition featuring artists in Maryland who are champions of public awareness around mental illness and addiction, both through their art and their own actions. And we are also the creative team for a opioid overdose reversal public awareness program. Naloxone is the treatment. If somebody overdoses, it's almost like a miracle drug. You administer naloxone and somebody who's not breathing because of an opioid overdose comes back to life. We are doing a campaign called I Am a First Responder, where we are photographing individuals who have saved lives by administering naloxone with the idea that anyone can be a first responder. And they're tapping our shoulder because of our ability to tap the arts to fully humanize these issues.
Yeah. Awesome. So I just have two more questions before we finish up. One, if people are hearing this now, if they're hearing me talk in the future, they're hearing you talk, what is the best way for them to connect and support?
Yeah. So the best way to support is to contribute to your peer-to-peer campaign. And I'm going to let you share that information.
Yes. Yep.
But what I would say is go to our website, newdaycampaign.org. And if, I'm not sure when people are going to view this video, but today, November 20th, was it 20th today? November 20th? Something like that?
Yeah. Yeah, around then.
Today, our website, although it has a little bit of updated information, is a residue of 2015. In other words, people who go there will see a lot of stuff about what we did in 2015. That's one of the things we've been working on all year. Website 2.0 to reflect a new organization. Yeah. So at a certain point soon, the website will be brilliant in terms of up to date.
Great.
But right now, you can still go there. And on the homepage, there's several ways of getting involved. You can sign up for our email list, click on our Founder Circle hyperlink, which will bring you to the donation information on how to contribute. And there's information on programming as well. Awesome. Yeah. So that is the way to get involved. Now, what about your page?
Yes. Yeah. So that I have shared and I will share on my Facebook page. I don't know the exact link, but you can donate. And, my main focus with this is keeping families together by helping end the stigma, of mental illness and substance abuse. And I will share that around as I have been also. And if I'm not in Baltimore at the moment, but I've attended some of the, programs that you have throughout the year, and they're really great. Some are larger, some are smaller, but all of them are comfortable. Just really great environments to be in and great ways to meet people and not intimidating by any means. Great things to just stop by and join.
Can I say one more thing? I want to say something about the relationship between art and healing, which is the formula that is really extremely simple that the New Day campaign is running with. We serve the arts because the arts themselves tend to be seen as marginalized and not with efficacy in and of themselves with social issues. I cannot tell you how many artists are jumping on board because of the efficacy of their work as artists. So not only are we upholding aesthetic qualities of the highest standard, but we are pivoting it to have these extraordinary social impact outcomes in an area of tremendous social need. So we serve the arts and culture community as much as we serve the healing community by using the arts with all kinds of positive outcomes around healing, awareness, lifting, connecting people, you name it. So the art and healing combination is the real power of the new campaign.
Yeah, that's great. And then, so my last question before we finish up is, now it's been about 2 years since you've kind of been out in the public, talking to people, being a part of people's lives, and they're, I'm sure people ask you questions all the time. What is one question that you wish people would ask you?
Yeah, boy, you got me in that one. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, so I know, because I feel like a lot of times people come to us with the same problems, the same questions, and the same kind of mind frame around it. What's one piece of advice or thing that they wish you would ask that you'd like to share with people in their lives about healing or addiction?
I would like people to ask me, how does fear affect me? Because then I can go straight to it and talk about fear.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, the thing that underlies the stigma. It's the core. And I don't have answers for how to control fear, but I want people to understand how devious and insidious and silent fear is as a motivator for our stigmatization. And I want someone to say to me, hey, can you tell me what role fear might be playing in my life in relationship to those with mental illness and addiction? And we'd have things to talk about. Yeah,
absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking some time out today to share with me and with us and everyone that will be watching this in the future.
I'm really grateful to you, Claire.
Thank you.